What's going on, guys? So today we're talking about the best budget decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, June 2024. I would love to take credit for this list, but alas, my name is not Hanko Chow. Sorry, Mr. Chow, if I butchered that. Do any of these links work? Because I checked the other links. Okay, this is their Facebook, I think. I think that's their Facebook. But these links don't work. I already tried them. So yeah, if you guys are like me, and I would assume most of you are, because I do a lot of the Penny Stock Market Watch content. I just took a break, by the way. I don't want to just randomly act like I didn't. I did just take a little bit of a break. I'm back better than ever before. I stopped playing because it was a tier 0 format, and now that there's another one, I had to jump in. But no, I've been looking actually a lot into doing a lot of deck profiles, and so this is just right up my alley of what I've been trying to do. If there's any decks that you guys want me to do a deck profile of, that's going to be the main focus of this channel. Let me know in those comments down below what deck you'd like me to do. I will say, unfortunately, I just recently chopped down the money tree that I had in my backyard, so I no longer have a money tree in my backyard. So basically, I say all that in a really funny way to say, the more expensive a deck you want me to do a profile on, the less likely it is for me to do it. But the inverse is true too, right? The cheaper the deck is, like some of these decks we're about to talk about, the more likely I am to do a deck profile of it. The first deck we're going to be talking about is Pearly. Now this does have a market price of $304.48. I will say, however, though, if we can sort by, we can't sort by price. I will say this Ash Blossom and Joy Springs at 1 is interesting. Is $4. The Black Goat Laughs. I personally don't think you need this card for Pearly. $14. And then, of course, the card that makes every budget deck no longer budget, SP Little Knight, is $100. Other than that, most things are pretty. And then I have Typhoons obviously up there too. Zeus is $10, even though it just got the reprint. Noir, I will say the two Noirs are the most expensive. Beauty's actually kind of more expensive than Noir, which is crazy. It's crazy that this Noir is more expensive than that Noir. I could do this long drawn out discussion about Pearly. If you guys are familiar with this channel, you already know I'm not the biggest fan of this deck. I really don't get it. I really don't see what the appeal is, why everybody loves it, why everybody likes it. It did get top 64 at YCS Indianapolis, and I'm just going to go ahead and point everybody in the direction of Jesse Cotton, who just did a 20-minute video on this exact deck, and he'll do this deck a lot more justice than I would. He did a deck profile with it as well. I will say, when it comes to Pearly, they are very good. It's very good at creating advantage, and that's what you need to do if you're going to be playing a rogue deck. And unfortunately, budget doesn't automatically mean rogue, right? You look at these decks, right? But usually they become synonymous with each other, because very rarely can you spend little and get a great deck. And Pearly is really good at creating advantage. Does it lose to a Kaiju? Yes. But once you start getting the engine going, you're in a really great spot. But like I said, Jesse Cotton has a great video on Pearly. I don't really want to dive too deep into it right here, right now. But I will talk about Floowandereeze, which is another deck. It's been budget forever, $290. Is this also running SP Little Knight? Okay, I figured. As well as Viduris. Why? Why? That's spicy. If this card, why? How do you make this? What's Empen? Is Empen a 10? Empen's a 10? Wow, all right, that's cool. I didn't actually even know that. But anyway, this card, right? And it had a bunch of, it used to be actually like a $10 card, but actually it's had a lot of reprints recently. And this card is a big reason why Floowandereeze and decks like it, I'm talking Metaphys, Nemleria, just the Grand Maju Banished deck. These decks are still relevant in today's meta. And just let's be real, you put D-Shifter in a deck, and it's a win con. That's why Kashtira is hanging around. Kashtira can do a lot of other really great things too, and that's not really necessarily speaking budget. I don't want to just fly through the first 2 decks on this list, but we kind of all know what Floowandereeze does, right? Normal Summon Search, Normal Summon Search. We like to banish. We like to win. I will say this card, Swallow's Cowrie. Did I say that right? It came out in Phantom Nightmare, completely brought this deck back to the forefront, and it's a super cheap card. Like, you could really build this deck with like $40, which is exactly what you're looking for. Like, if you don't mind the playstyle, that's my issue with this deck. My issue with this deck is that, one, it has a very simple playstyle, so it's easier to counter, and 2, it's kind of boring to pilot. And maybe I'm wrong, Floowandereeze players, let me know in the comments. I mean, I am a Floowandereeze player. I played it nonstop in Master Duel before, of course, it got absolutely shafted. I mean, Extravagance, Prosperity, what else? I think the map, I think map is at 1. All of those cards are at 1, which is really unfortunate. D-Shifter's at 2. Which I don't mind D-Shifter at 2 anyway, because it gets kind of, you don't want to draw the 3rd D-Shifter is the issue with D-Shifter. But anyway, for me, that's a big issue. There's not a lot of skill expression with Floowandereeze. There's not a lot of outplay potential. It's just kind of like, if I get my engine going and I open D-Shifter, you lose. Which, nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing, I mean, if we're paying like $20 to go to this regional, I wouldn't mind a deck that's you know, easier to just kind of play, and the skill expression can maybe be in the side deck, right, where there is a lot of different options that you can go with. But now we gotta talk about this fun little deck too. Runic Stud running 2 monsters, Omano Iwato, $1.37. I don't think this card's ever been less than $1, which is crazy. Runic Tip is still about $6. Card of Demise is an interesting one because this deck wants to keep its cards in its hand, but what's interesting is that if you fill the board with back row, now that Cosmic Cyclone on the fountain isn't as good as it used to be, right? Is this another deck that's ruined by SP Little Knight? Yeah. I don't think you need this in the main deck. This is pretty crazy. This doesn't hurt a lot of really great decks right now. And Typhon as well. The Runic level 8, it's a good card. 9? It's a good card, but it's not like necessary. Really, what's necessary is right here, and it is super cheap. And Runic is another one of those decks, unfortunately, like Floowandereeze. That's like, it's harder to play than Floowandereeze, but it's still very like, hey, Johnny, is that Asian Persuasion? It's like very much, it's a certain type of duel, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that, for those that, you know, it didn't get that didn't make sense to them, the type of duel that Runic wants to play is like 6 or 7 turns long, right? And there's a level of stamina, and you don't usually use that word a lot in card games, but there's a level of stamina you have to have with Runic, because you can't just go like negate this monster, negate that, pop that monster. You know, pop that back row, banish those cards. Because this deck, even you know, I mean, obviously with Fountain Up, if you're activating 3 Runic cards a turn, you're fine. But we're not talking about the best case scenario. We're talking about a situation where your opponent knows what they're doing. They know how to play into Runic. Usually, if you guys have actually watched my video, how to beat stun decks, I was talking about Card Demise decks at the time, but it fits for Runic as well, which is another deck that used to run Card Demise. You let them lead the dance, right? And a great player is going to know that. The Johnny Wins, the Jesse Cottons that we were just talking about, who piloted that first deck that we saw, the Pearly deck. The Dean Fawns of the world, right? These people are going to know that if you go to, like, the stun player wants you to overextend, so it can punish. So don't overextend, right? And when that ends up happening is the stun player now has to lead the dance with their deck without overextending themselves. And that's why, like I said, it turns into this long, drawn-out 6-7 turn duel. And when you play it on like Master Duel or even at your own locals, scooping and leaving because you don't want to face Runic is fine. But when you're at a bigger event like a regional, especially later in the rounds, or when you're just in top cut at your locals, it can get a little difficult. But aside from all of that, what I really like about Runic is its versatility, because they all the Runic spells obviously say special summon one Runic monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, right? What I also like about Runic, where I would recommend Runic, is Runic has found its way into a lot of decks, into Naturia, into Furhire, into Sprite. I've thought about the idea of testing like Runic Fire King, but like with, hear me out, let me cook for a second. Like Runic Fire King, but with the old Garunics. You know, the new Garunics that pots from deck? Yes, we run that one too, but like the old Garunics, and we're blowing up the field and we're running Runic cards in our hand. It's an idea that never formulated, but it's an idea nonetheless. I think the Sprite variant is been a really popular variant, but right now Runic Stun has just been really good. And a big reason for that, Amano Owado is a really solid card, and all these cards are really cheap. So why not, right? Why not? Especially if you already have your Typhon and your SP Little Knight. I mean, you take out these $145, $150, and I think we're looking at a $72 deck. And that's assuming, you know, there's not really anywhere else I could see you cutting. I mean, you don't really need card wise, I guess, but Runic Tip's a $6 card because it's Runic Tip, right? And this deck's not getting hit by the ban list too. So I think Runic's always going to have a relative place in the meta, but it's not the greatest ever to pilot. But then we do have Danger Dark World. This one was in the top 32 at France. That was cool. Danger Dark World's interesting. Obviously, Dark Corridor wasn't in the structure deck. That's going to run you $11. SP's doing SP things, but other than that, Apollosa, $4. Cross Sheep, you do need the Cross Sheep too. Sorry, usually, but I think these are $2 cards. What is it? Magical Spring. Shout out to that. Snatch Steel, great card. Triple Tactics Thrust. I mean, you cut the Thrust. You cut SP Little Knight. I mean, honestly, what cards are not in the structure deck? You know what I mean? I think Nessie's not in the structure deck. But like, look at this. The Dark World common structure deck, Dark World 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 structure deck. But this is the gold rare, and this was also from the Dark World structure deck. This is from the Dark World structure deck. Do you kind of get the vibe here? You know, there's not a lot of. I honestly think that this structure deck is better than the Fire King structure deck. Like, I think this is the best structure deck on the market right now. I think the Archfiend Resonator structure deck is pretty interesting as well. There'll be a profile on that deck coming out very soon. I've been dabbling with that deck a little bit. I've been negative, relatively speaking, to other decks, so allow me to be negative real quick to this one as well. I feel like a lot of times with Dark World, it's like either my opponent like has a Droll or Ashes at the right time, or plays DD Crow at the right time, and I just end my turn and I lose. Or my opponent has nothing, I create this crazy unbreakable board and I win. And there's no in between, right? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to mess around with the deck a little bit. In my experience, Dark World, that it's very glass cannon-y, right? It's very much like I did what I wanted to do, and so now I'm going to win, versus I couldn't accomplish what I was trying to accomplish, so now I lose. And so with that, it's super high value, and I do enjoy like the vibe of it, the concept of it. Like, I don't know if you guys ever played like Marvel Snap or even like Legends of Runeterra, or Hearthstone as another card game as well. in every single one of those games, I find myself gravitating towards discard. This concept of like a negative, which is discarding from our hand, turning to a positive because we're running a bunch of cards that actually want to be discarded, right? It's super cool. Also, this deck runs a Lower Darkness, one of the best draw cards in the entirety of the game. That's legal. So, Dark World, you do have to buy copies of Dark Corridor, which is going to run you about $12 a pop, so that's 24. 3 copies of the structure deck. Everybody acts like structure decks are 30. They're not 30 anymore, though. At least where I'm at, structure decks are like 12, right? So 35 for the structure deck, 25 for Dark Corridor. We're looking at about $60 for a full power Dark World deck. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice if you had number 60. It'd be nice if you had Muckracker. Muckracker? Muckracker or Muckracker? Does anybody really know? It'd be nice if you had Apollousa, Underworld Goddess, all of these different cards. But if not, you can pick up copies of the structure deck and go from there. So I really like this deck. I just, sometimes it feels like Solitaire. And like, I understand a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh decks feel like Solitaire, but Dark World feels like that even more. But that's it. Let me know what you guys think of those comments down below. There are actually a lot of really great budget decks right now. Let me know in those comments down below which decks you are looking at. Make sure you guys click that like button and show your support for the channel. Subscribe for even more content. But most importantly of all, have a good day.